Here we go. So we're live to Facebook.
Okay.
Live to YouTube. And then just reminder, it's going to take me 2 minutes or whatever to get them formatted.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sharing.
It won't be long though. But yeah, we're up. And they can hear you.
Yeah. Hello, Governor. Yeah.
Afternoon, Governor.
Hello, hello.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Okay, how's that? Good afternoon.
Hey, thank you so much.
Happy to do it. Good to see you guys.
You too.
It's good to see you. Yeah. Are you, well, I don't even know we should ask. We're not creepers, but are you home in Egan or where are you at?
I'm in Egan, sitting in my living room.
Nice.
How was the trip?
The trip was great. You know that Norway's a beautiful country, especially those fjords, but we had a great time and glad to be back, though.
Oh, yeah. It can be both. Good. Well, we're gonna. Gabe's just gonna format you in, and then we're gonna have like a couple minutes of our intro, and we pay the bills, get our sponsors, and we're gonna go right to you. So
Okay, sounds great.
okay, and I'll watch time.
And I don't
You'll
know.
help watch
I don't know
time.
if you can see me. I'm behind the Wrong About Everything, but this is Brian McDaniel.
This is where
You've
we're gonna
never-
keep him because it's
Yeah.
just easier.
You've never looked so good.
I get that a lot. Yes.
He's so pretty.
And Governor, I don't remember if we ever met in person, but Javier Murillo.
Yeah, no, I don't know that we've met, but I've seen you at least in social media or otherwise.
he apologized.
Yes, he's that guy.
I'm very sorry. Yes, that is me.
Well, everybody's got a gig, man.
Correct. Thanks for understanding that. Some people don't get that.
I understand.
All right, guys. We are all ready to go.
Okay.
If you guys good.
Okay.
We'll start the commercial.
All right. Support for Wrong About Everything comes from Minnesota's credit unions. Credit unions are locally based, member-owned financial cooperatives that return earnings to members through higher savings rates, lower loan rates, and reduced fees. Visit mncun.org for more information.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Wrong About Everything podcast. I am GOP strategist and former Tim Pawlenty staffer, Brian McDaniel.
I am former Republican Senate Majority Leader and current fan of Tim Pawlenty, Amy Koch.
I am Democratic strategist and former annoyer of Governor Tim Pawlenty, Javier Murillo.
And we are
Wrong About Everything.
I'm sure you kept them
Everyone.
up at night.
Oh, no, I tried. I tried.
Your best.
I did my best.
Well, we have a very special guest. Hopefully you saw our social media, but we have a former Minnesota Governor Tim Pawlenty who's going to be on and talk with us a little bit about the vice presidential vetting process. So we want to get to that as soon as possible. But I want to welcome Governor Pawlenty and all of you to the Minnesota Credit Union Network studios here deep within the recesses of MBC Studios in Northeast Minneapolis. We have our favorite producer, Gabe Noah, working the board. We want to make sure to have you please subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is where most of our content is going to be going forward. So please find us on YouTube and then also at our website, which is www.wrongabout-everything-podcast.com. And once again, if you're not a snitch,
Yeah.
you want to contact our good friends at Bradshaw and Bryant. Their entire team of attorneys and staff is dedicated to providing you the legal advice you need, combined with the service and personal attention you deserve. If you have questions about how they can assist you with a personal injury, wrongful death, or criminal defense matter, do not hesitate to contact them. Consultations are free. Contact them at 800-770-7008 or at minnesotapersonalinjury.com.
No snitches.
No snitches.
No snitches. That's
They don't
Michael
want 'em.
Bryan. He said,
They don't
no,
want
I
'em."
don't represent snitches. In one interview, we're like, oh, okay.
So let's get going with
Let's
one of
get
the few
going.
people in Minnesota who can actually talk knowledgeably about a vice presidential vetting process.
Right. So, Governor Tim Pawlenty, thank you so much for coming on. A little background for if you've been under a rock and you have no idea. Tim Pawlenty served, 93 to 2003 in the House of Representatives, served as Majority Leader for, 6 years? 4 years? 6 years?
Or
4 years, and then ran for governor in 2002 and served 2 terms as Minnesota's governor, 2002 to 2006, or 2006, yep, and 2006 to 2010.
And he hired me 2 different times.
I'm sorry, we forgot to make it about Brian.
Yep.
For
Or
a
at least he
second
didn't
there.
stop other people from hiring me, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
We apologize. And of course, when John McCain was running for president, Tim Pawlenty was at the tippy top of all the lists. And the last time Minnesota got so excited for being in the national news was about Governor Tim Pawlenty. So we're just so grateful to have you on, Governor. Thank you so much. And there's just nobody else that we could possibly have to answer the kind of questions that we're interested in. So thanks.
I'm delighted to be with you. Thanks for having me on, and I appreciate your interest in the topic. It's a rare niche for people to be experiencing this weird finalist selection process for VP. So happy to help.
Well, that's the thing is like what I'm so excited that you agreed to be on, because you can tell us sort of just how in depth is this process? How does it go? Like, and so we have lots of questions.
We have lots of questions, and Governor, you should know, like, our folks are very in depth. You cannot go too nerdy or political with this crowd. That's what they want. That's what they tune in for. We're here for it. So my first question, Governor. Going through the vetting process, there seems to be sort of this. There's a lot of conversation in this case about Governor Shapiro of Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania sort of being ball game and needing those electoral votes. But then you have a Tim Walz in there from Minnesota, where like smaller electoral count. How much of the vetting process do you think is electoral college and just like a simple math game to win, and how much of it is actually like being able to work with someone, personality, and kind of a decision by the president that this is the person that I want to choose?
Well, I was involved as a contestant, so to speak, in this twice, primarily with McCain in 08 and less so with Romney in 12. But I've also, over the years, had a chance to talk to a lot of people who've been in the room when these decisions were considered and made. And what they'll say is the following. It always comes down to a combination of, is this person ready to be president, of course? 2, they look for either amplification of the candidate's strengths or balance. And then lastly, what can that person bring to the table from a political perspective? And on that last point, they say candidates who are making the final decision, the presidential candidate will say, oh, it's not about politics, but they'll say more often than not, it's about politics. And that electoral college consideration or some other political consideration looms large. So how does that apply to Governor Walz or to me? In Governor Walz's case, is he ready to be president? Yes, I think he is. 2, what does he bring to the ticket? And he doesn't really bring balance in terms of philosophy or policy, because I think his policy positions more or less mirror Vice President Harris's policies, but he amplifies her strengths. They're both progressives, and he was the one candidate left standing compared to Shapiro and Kelly down in Arizona, who the Democratic base, parts of it didn't turn on.
Yeah.
So he was able to be selected without part of the base being mad, angry, upset. And that was important because essentially they're going to run a base campaign. They believe they've got more voters than the Republicans. And if they energize and turn out their base, they think they're going to win. And they might be right if they can actually do that. And then lastly, the bonus is, what does this person bring in terms of the Electoral College or politics otherwise? And everybody assumed she was going to go to Pennsylvania for that reason. She didn't. And she went with Walz, and I think part of that was personal chemistry, and part of that was concerns about Shapiro.
Yeah, so that's interesting because you listed that as third, right? That's so often what people talk about, and certainly the political hacks in D.C. that I was talking to, that's all they cared. They're like, well, Pennsylvania's endgame, Pennsylvania endgame, it has to be Shapiro. And I was like, I just don't feel that. The base is pushing back hard on Shapiro, and I think Walz is the safer play. And you're saying the same thing. Like, I feel like by the time they got to the third thing, which is electoral count, it was already kind of too late for Shapiro.
Well, the other thing they always say, and this is an important one, I forgot to say it up front, first is do no harm.
Yeah.
And if you tick a bunch of your base off with the VP pick, you've done some harm right out of the gate. And let's go through what happened to Kelly and Shapiro. Parts of the Democratic Party base turned on Kelly because he had ticked off private sector labor unions, and there may be other issues, style issues, but primarily on the substance of it, the labor unions did not want Kelly. That's a big problem because labor unions, of course, are a big part of the Democrat base. And then as to Shapiro, he was in favor of school choice, so the teacher unions took it, kneecapped him, and you can't tick off the teacher unions as a Democratic candidate. It's one of the most important base constituencies there is. And then, of course, his pro-Israel policies began to get the attention of the increasingly pro-Palestinian base within the Democratic Party. And that caused all sorts of cross currents, I'm sure, in this election discussion, which led to the safe pick in terms of the base of Walz from a Democratic perspective.
That's great. That's great. Okay, so this question comes from Brian's brother-in-law. So it's a hot one. How much of the
still
vetting?
Speaking?
Yeah, exactly. How much of the vetting is of your private lives? Are you expected to sort of come with your own awful research, or do they dig in? And was there anybody random that was contacted that you were surprised at in the vetting process?
And the reason my brother-in-law brings it up is because he grew up as Tim Walz's neighbor, his student, and one of his players. So he was just kind of wondering if his name came up.
It's a huge. This year is a little different, obviously, because with Biden withdrawing at the last minute, this whole process was dramatically abbreviated compared to a typical process.
Yep.
So in the McCain process, it started way early. I had known McCain for years and traveled with him both domestically and internationally anyhow, so I'd sort of informally knew him and he knew me. But as to the formal part of the process, a large packet arrives. It's a lengthy questionnaire that wants every detail about who you are, where you were raised, where you lived, your family members, how you made your money, your financial investments, your health, your relatives, any problems with the law, any other issues that you may have. It's very extensive. It's like an FBI background check. That gets submitted to a Washington-based law firm. Lawyers fly out to Minnesota, in my case, to the governor's residence. They spend the weekend interviewing you and my wife, Mary, going through my responses, asking additional questions, doing more due diligence. Then they hire a bunch of people to go out and interview some other people to make sure what you said was accurate and complete. If they want medical records, so you got to get your doctor to, submit medical records to make sure you're healthy and all of that. And then it goes in. And then you also then go on the audition tour, which is you start to campaign as a surrogate. You go out. In my case, I went to McCain's house in Arizona, his ranch in Arizona. I traveled with him a bunch, was with him on the stump and independently. It's basically an elongated audition. So by the time they make the decision, they got all the information as if you were ready for a security clearance.
That's what I was just going to say. It sounds like the security clearance that I got to be a Russian linguist at the NSA. That's so extensive.
Very similar, and it's very much like that. And then, of course, the other interesting thing about the process is there's the campaign within the campaign. So once the candidates, the finalists are identified, we'll use this year's as an example, Walz, Shapiro, and Kelly, even though they don't admit it, interest groups and the candidates themselves sometimes start attacking each other to position themselves as the favorable candidate or to try to take out one of their competitors.
And in that, when they're asking you questions, asking your wife questions, and then they're verifying if the answers are correct. I'd imagine that there are, or I'll ask you, are there moments that are personally uncomfortable? Is it a painful process? Does it bring up painful old things, or it's anything like that? Because it seems like when you start talking to neighbors, anything could come up.
Sure. In my case, I wasn't worried about it because I didn't think I did anything wrong or had anything embarrassing to reveal.
It's just us then. It's just the three of us then.
I could see where it could get very painful. The thing is, if you did have a major problem, you probably wouldn't apply anyhow, although some people in politics, a lot of people in politics are delusional, so they sort of push on anyhow, thinking they can get away with it, and they almost never do. So I could see where if you had issues, you'd either have to have a really good explanation, or it could get embarrassing, or they'll just eliminate you in the process.
Who was to your knowledge, who was the most random person that maybe got, contacted, kindergarten teacher, fraternity, whatever it might be? Who was the most far out there person that was contacted on your behalf?
Well, let me see. Who, neighbors for sure. They went back and talked to neighbors. And like you said, who knows what some of my neighbors could have said over the years. And, when you're a prominent Republican and half your neighbors are not, having a dandelion could become an issue. Yeah. Who knows?
I would have been very mad about your dandelions. As a gardener, I would have been very mad.
I had other issues. But, the thing, today with social media, a lot of it can be done electronically and remotely. And by the time you're being considered for Vice President of the United States, you typically have years and years of voting records, behaviors, reputations.
Yeah.
People like Javier sniping at you on social media, and they go through all that. They go through all that. Okay.
So one thing that struck me about CNN had this long article about this vetting process, and one of the things they pointed out that the team talked about as that was a selling point for Walz, especially in contrast to Shapiro, was that Shapiro came in sort of thinking wanting to negotiate like what the job would look like, and whereas Walz came in saying, "I'm at your service, Madam President." I would imagine that it's different when it happens like a year before, where maybe they're like, because what I found surprising about that is that with the short time frame, it seems like the Walz framing of like, I'm here to serve whatever you would like me to would just seem more logical, like a good way to approach it. But does the process involve, like, did it for you involve like defining what the role would look like for you? Because the vice president job can be everything from like, a ribbon cutter to a real partner.
Right. Well, I think you raise a really good point, Javier. And I don't know Governor Shapiro. I've watched him a fair amount on media. I've watched his mannerisms. I've read a lot about people who are supporters and detractors of his. And there does seem to be a narrative around him that he does not lack for ambition. Of course, all politicians have ambition, so that's not the end of the world. But also that he's pretty, not necessarily willing to be second fiddle, sees himself as sort of the conductor of the orchestra, not one of the players in the orchestra. And I could see where Governor Walz would go in and say, I'll do anything, any way you want to do it. Mm-hmm. And if Shapiro went in, as is reported, and said, basically, I don't even know if I want the job, and if I do, I want certain powers, and I've got conditions, and I could see a candidate looking at that going, you know what, this person may be too high maintenance.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want to deal with that
right.
going forward.
Yeah, he did sort of have that smell, Shapiro did, of like, he wanted it too much. We said, pick me, girl. We said, pick me, girl. But like, they want. Okay, so, I wanted to think. So, is it okay if we move a little bit on to? Go ahead.
Wait, I want to ask.
I don't want to get off the video, but I want to get into. Yes,
yeah. Well, on the so obviously you weren't picked. Right. And so I was thinking about this a lot, because Tim Walz is a friend, and I was like, part of the emotions of last week was like, God, this is a very public process to go through, and then to not get it. And so I guess my question is, like, what was that like? And then with this many years in retrospect, what was that like in losing to Sarah Palin?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I can tell you what it was like at the time, and I can tell you what I think about it now.
Perfect.
With the benefit of some experience and wisdom and hindsight. I now know retrospectively that Senator McCain was told basically in the late summer of in 2008 that he was likely to lose the election. You might recall the economy was cratering, Obama was ascending, there was sort of Bush fatigue that had set in, and he realized he needed to throw a long ball, and he really did.
Yeah,
and so
he did.
He went for the fences, and I think had he made a more traditional decision, maybe the outcome would have been different. But that was his thinking, that was his mindset. And with that in mind, if he really was going to lose and he had to do something high risk, potentially high reward, you of course sort of understand the decision. When I heard the news, I was surprised. I really thought I was one of two finalists. I didn't know the other finalist even was Sarah Palin. By the way, we're talking about vetting, as history would reflect.
Yeah, it seems like they missed a few things.
They missed some things.
Very little vetting. But at the time, you're first of all hopeful. That last 24, 48 hours, you're not sure. There's a lot of speculation. Rumors are flying around everywhere.
Yeah.
And you remain hopeful. But of course, when you get the news, you're disappointed. And then you got to go out as a loyal soldier and say great things about the ticket, great things about Sarah Palin as the vice presidential candidate. Blah, blah, blah. So it was disappointing, but, as in hindsight, probably particularly disappointing to lose to somebody who wasn't even particularly vetted and turned out to be not necessarily a net plus for the ticket.
Yeah, I feel like they almost panicked a little bit with that decision. And I don't know if that makes it better. Maybe it does. I feel like it should, because I do feel like it was just what you said. It felt like that. It felt like they were just throwing a long ball. Like, well, let's try this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I should say, Governor Walz, what an amazing series of weeks and months for him. I know him. I like him. I have done events with him, not political events, but community events and things like that. He's a folksy, likable person, and I get along with him. I don't agree with him politically, so you can see where, if you're the Harris team and you're looking at Kelly and Shapiro, and then Walz comes in the room, just from an interpersonal dynamic standpoint, he could come across significantly better than those other two. Those two are sort of, they don't have his charisma, his warmth, his interpersonal skills, and so you could see where they would be drawn to Walz as between those other two candidates.
Conservative TV and radio kind of have been looking for, like, Amy and I to kind of crap on this a little bit, but in reality, it's a good, safe pick, because there's nobody who said, I was going to vote for Harris, but now they picked Tim Walz and I'm out. I mean, nobody's going to say that. So this, with those other guys, definitely there would have been, scores of people that would have, had a problem, or at least,
right,
distracted the campaign.
Yeah, I agree with that, Brian. I think that's a good summary.
So then, Governor, and because you've played in this too, a state running a Minnesota statewide campaign, and then going on to the national stage. It's hard for me to even comprehend something that large, because for me, a statewide campaign is pretty darn big. And so can you just touch on a little bit about, like, what's required? What is that rush when you're, like you said, you went to Arizona and now you're going to all these events and and the press has become, it's not just, NPR and the Strib and, whatever it was, Rachel Stassenberger and Tom Sheck, when they were around. Brian Baxt. This is like, I mean, I don't even know, 25, 50 cameras being shoved in your face, all these, like, just literally hundreds of millions of people with your eyes on you. What does that feel like? And what do you have to do to sort of prepare for something, or can you prepare for something like that?
Well, you really put your finger on an interesting part of the process, Amy, and that is, you have big events. So it's one thing to be at the state level, as you mentioned, but these national events at a presidential level are mega events. They are mega events from a security standpoint, from an attendance standpoint, from a politics, logistics, entertainment, atmosphere standpoint. And so it's 10x what most people would have experienced at the local level. But for most of these VP candidates, and especially Governor Walz, they have spent months as surrogates, sometimes out in little events by themselves. But when they're with the candidate, they get a taste for that. You'll see pictures of Governor Walz previously. I've been, like with all governors, with the president on Air Force One, or by Marine One, or in some big arena where they've got the whole, everything I just described set up, and maybe you're a warm-up speaker. So you sort of see it, you get a taste for it, but that first time you walk out to a national convention or an arena like that, and those cameras are all there, and the lights are all up, and the expectations are as high as they are, it's different. But somebody like Walz, to a certain extent, me when I was there, you've done it before.
Okay.
It's just a little different intensity and higher stakes and higher risk. But I think he's going to do fine in that regard, because he has spent a long time as governor. He's the head of the Democratic Governors Association. That's its own campaign platform. He was in Congress. He's been to the White House a bunch of times. So he's not going to be starry-eyed around some of the trappings of these events. But we'll see if the intensity of it changes any of it. A lot of times he'll be on a teleprompter now instead of the off the cuff, the so-called Walz word salads that he sometimes would get away with in Minnesota. But I think last night at this rally in Philadelphia, setting aside the content and the substance, he and Harris had well-constructed, well-choreographed speeches, and it was a well-constructed, well-choreographed event.
One of the things that you had said earlier was, when listing the different reasons that you would pick someone or not pick someone, you said, preparedness to be president. President Trump, kind of said, well, J.D. Vance isn't ready, but historically, people aren't, vice presidents aren't ready. I think that there's been a devaluation of that part of this. But is there any thoughts you have on JD Vance and what?
I was going to ask. I wasn't sure if I wanted to put you on.
What, because he brings things to the ticket.
Well, I mean, obviously you'd love a person who has lots of experience running large enterprises and making executive decisions and executive function, executive capabilities. But that's not always the case in politics. And, with all due respect, President Obama was previously basically a state legislator and a couple of years in the U.S. Senate. And so J.D. Vance served a couple of years in the U.S. Senate and did a bunch of other stuff. So he has, comparable experience to President Obama. Yeah. So is it ideal just from an on-paper resume standpoint that it's that thin or light? No. But is it comparable to President Obama and some others that have gone on to do, at least in the eyes of their party, a good job? Yes. And by the way, if you look at the rest of his life, it's not like he's a, dunderhead. He's got a fair amount of capacity upstairs.
Yeah, do you think he's struggled kind of stepping onto that national stage, or do you think he's getting his feet under him with JD?
The rollout's been clunky. I mean, let's be honest. It's I think he's a capable person, but the way they rolled it out is clunky. And I think the way they presented him and the way he presented himself was suboptimal to start. We still can recover from that, but it wasn't as smooth as it could have been.
So, Governor, I believe yesterday you said in an interview that you won't be voting for Harris Wells, but couldn't support Trump. Did I get that right?
Did you say could or couldn't support Trump?
Could not support Trump.
Well, I did. I think what I said, I don't know which interview, I did a bunch of them over the last 24 hours. I've made my views known about Trump, which is a lot of reservation and concern, but I am not voting for Harris and Walz, and my only other choice is to vote for Trump. And so I probably will do that. I will do it with the reservations and concern, but I joined that group of Americans that would say, I'm not for the Democrat social alliance perspective going forward for the nation. I'm not for that, can't be for that, and that's got all sort of danger lurking behind it. And I'm very mindful of the dangers that Trump presents, so I'm not fully for that. But if I have to choose between the two, and particularly the policies behind those two things, probably I'll end up voting for Trump. And by the way, I've voted for him in the past, even though I've got all these reservations, because the other choices, in my view, are worse.
I don't know. As someone who has always wanted to dump a bear in Central Park, I think that I found my candidate. So I'm RFK all the way.
Yeah,
he may be. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, exactly.
He's different, we'll put it that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Something's wrong.
But what are your thoughts on the future of the Republican Party, given the reservations that you have about Trump and that you've expressed before, and just where do you think it seems like the party is either at a crossroads of just being fully just a cult of personality from my perspective, or like where there's a less emphasis on policy ideas and more just on following the leader. How do you see the future of the party?
Well, on the positive side, what Trump did to the party, and it is the Trump party, let's just be honest. There is no other Republican Party currently other than just the Trump party. There's some, niche split off groups and people, but the party writ large is a Trump party. And that's a populist party. And you can agree or disagree with the policies and how consistent they are or not, but it is a populist party. And Trump has brought new people to the party, and particularly working class Americans that previously were not Republicans or didn't vote Republican. So where does it go from here? I think it depends on what happens in November. If Trump wins, it's going to continue to be an accelerated Trump, MAGA party going forward. If he loses, then there's going to be an entire reevaluation of where the party goes from here. And you'll have the remainders of the MAGA movement trying to hang on to it with the form of some candidates who are mini Trumps in the future. But I think you're going to have a whole bunch of other people saying, let's try to rebrand and do something different, both in terms of personalities, tone, and the way that this message and our values and ideas get projected. Think, for example, people who potentially ran in the past, but there'll be new people who will emerge. But a Nikki Haley, a Marco Rubio, I'm sure J.D. Vance will want to run, perhaps, but maybe DeSantis. But in my view, especially in Minnesota, look, the Republican Party statewide hasn't won since I won in 2006.
Yeah.
They just love to lose. They perfected the art of losing. And,
That's right.
you know, it just
it's
is like
painful.
it's a debate club. It doesn't, you know, you got to win elections to govern. And
right.
what they have now is basically, again, on a statewide basis, a debating club. It's like going to coffee at the cafe with people and bullshitting about issues, and then go home and it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, I still have my Plenty hockey jersey from '01, so I'll put it back on anytime you say,
I
Governor.
was going to say, you make me proud to be Republican
Yeah.
governor, so anytime. One last question, because we are, bipartisan, and we believe that we aren't even bipartisan. We're just like people that believe very strongly in things, but we still get together and talk about things. We're friends. People are always surprised about that. We've been doing this for 10 years, Governor, and we believe that that disagreement doesn't make us weaker, that it actually makes us understand more about who we are and why we believe what we believe, and strengthens some of those beliefs. Iron sharpens iron. Is there someone in your life that you disagree with completely, or almost completely, and yet consider them a good friend?
Oh, for sure. Including in my own family. Remember, I grew up in South St. Paul.
That's
My
right.
family of origin at the time were all Democrats. So I can name all my siblings early on. Now, some of them have morphed into Reagan and Trump Republicans. But, I won't name names, but I've got a dear, very close loved one, a sibling who has very different political views than I do. And I love that person very much. And we have great heart-to-heart discussions about politics and life and how, issues matter or don't matter. And those are really sincerely held beliefs. And sometimes the discussion can get heated. But at the end, we love each other, and we don't let politics do anything other than bring us together, not push us apart.
Governor, it's funny because I think that question feels weird in some ways because what you answered should just be normal, right? We're going to just have, but we've gotten to a place, and part of I've said many times that this podcast, we started it way before Trump, and the Trump years in many ways made it harder to have these conversations, but also made it feel more important that we do it because we lead such siloed lives. So I was just really grateful to hear you on the radio yesterday and just say, look, it's an honor, and not just immediately just trash Governor Walz because he's a Democrat, but that's how it, I feel like when you were governor, it was like a transition in our party politics nationally, where now things are so incredibly polarized that if you say anything that isn't spitting nails about the other party, you're a sellout.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, Javier. We have to live in community together, and we have to accept the notion that half of us have very different views from the rest of us about politics and how the country should be governed. And that doesn't mean the other side is evil. They may be wrong in our view, but this idea that if you don't agree with me, you're evil and you're out to destroy America, is really corrosive. And if you view your opponents as not just wrong or misguided, and a lot of times our opponents are just naive, or they have sort of high-minded ideals, but they can't practically construct how to do it or pay for it or the like. Their heart's in the right place. A lot of times, in my view, I don't mean to be pejorative, but a lot of liberals I know are sweet in their heart, but they're not practical in their head. And so you got to have the head and the heart connected, and hopefully the mouth connected as well. And so you can be wrong or misguided, but it doesn't make you evil. And I think we should treat each other more respectfully, civilly, and decently as Americans. Americans have no better friends. Americans have no better friends than other Americans. It's only us here. And if we tear each other down, what the hell do we have left? We are each other's best friends ultimately.
I mean, what we have left is, I think, a very scary dissolution of civil society, which is, and political violence, and that's the thing that is been a driver for me. Is just you see it more and more where it just feels like we're heading down a really ugly path. And when you head down that path, it's hard to come back.
You can feel it.
Yep.
Yeah, and you're a strong communicator. You guys are all strong communicators. I've been in situations, a former governor, where you really got to think about what you say, even if it's not inappropriate or inoffensive, offensive. because there are people who'll just pop off in ways that are, if not violent, really verbally aggressive, and it's really angry. And again, there's times and places to be angry. There's times and places to fight, but we have to treat each other as, fellow Americans, not as mortal and evil enemies.
Well, you just ruined the name of the whole podcast because you're right about everything, Governor.
Well, let's not go crazy. Let's not go crazy.
Everything. He's right about
Let's not
everything.
go crazy. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, we really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, and good luck with the rest of it.
All right.
Have a
Thank
great
you,
week.
sir.
All right, see ya.
Okay, see ya.
Bye.
Well, that was nice.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Woo. All right.
It's like
I don't even know what to say after that.
there was you could reminisce about the time when your party wasn't completely bananas.
Yeah, our party was not completely
Remember
bananas.
that?
Yeah,
Remember
that was
that? There was a time.
that was something quite amazing. And one thing I can say is having worked for him both at the House of Representatives and then I was in the administration, he knew what was in every single bill.
He did.
When I worked at the Department of Employment and Economic Development, they would call with questions, and he knew those bills as good as I did, better than I did, and he knew it for everything. So he was a very, very, very competent governor who absolutely understood how to govern and not just how to politic. And I was always very happy and proud to work for him, and I wish I could have done it longer with him being, bigger and better things. But
Yeah.
he's a happy dude, so
Awesome.
happy for him and his family.
That's so great. Okay, well, so we've kind of covered the Harris picking walls. It was huge. Anything else to add on that? I mean, it's a big week. I even my tweet went viral when I just said, "America, Minnesota's going to need a minute."
Yeah.
Because you could feel the excitement like new baby puppies with something. We were just all excited.
There's nothing that we love more than talking about
Minnesota.
Minnesota, and suddenly all eyes on us.
And last night, I can't wait for the T-shirts that say Minnesota Golden Rule: mind your damn business, mind your own damn business. that was good.
He did do a nice speech last night.
It was, and I will say, this is the Tim Walz from 2018 that I remember. He's a very good campaigner. When he is focused and a little bit scared, he's really good. And that's like he's just been phenomenal on the.
Well, I thought about what Governor Pawlenty was talking about, like what it must be like to step on that stage last night for him. Which again, he's had tastes of it. But to get out on that stage where people, waited for hours and hours for him to show, when the whole country has got eyes on you on TV, like I think you maybe can't even think about all the millions, tens and millions and hundreds of millions of eyeballs that are on you and that are going to be dissecting what you're saying. I think you just have to be in the moment and kind of think of like, this is what I got to do. I got to speak to these people and do my best. And I don't know. It's a very daunting stage to think about. There's nothing bigger in the world. Than the U.S. presidential race. He
even ad-libbed couch joke in yesterday.
Yes, he did. Was it ad lib? I don't feel like it was ad lib. I think somebody gave it to him.
But I'm
jaded.
All he had to do is read the internet.
Right.
He didn't make up the joke, but I was. I mean, someone said Minnesotans will be insufferable. But I also feel like insufferable, but not. Like Minnesotans are not Texans. Like we're not obnoxious about it.
It's only been a couple days. It's been
give us a little space.
It's been a lot. But I also think let people post their pictures with the governor. Let them be
weird. You haven't done that.
No.
Yeah, I know you have some.
Well, Maggie's got one. Margaret Thatcher.
I got pictures. Lots.
Please do not post a picture of the governor with Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah.
Because the country of Ireland will come after us.
It's just not her fault.
Yeah.
Not to mention,
poor baby
she
dog.
loves Israel.
She does.
Does love Israel.
She does.
Dog won't stop talking about it.
All right. Well, I guess next week we'll because I feel like we could take a whole show on this. We're going to talk about what happens next for Minnesota.
Yeah.
So we never get to all the news anymore because the weeks are so
That's
huge.
fine.
So
we had like an amazing interview with like
I know. I don't even feel it. Why don't we do this?
Probably
Why
one
don't
of
we
two
move to
people.
plugs?
Yeah, let's go to
Why
plugs.
don't we move to plugs? Who wants to start?
I can start.
Yes, please.
I got a couple of things coming up. I'm going to be on the John Justice Show on Twin
Yeah,
Cities
you are.
News Talk, AM 1130. I'll be on Friday morning, 7:30 to 9 on Twin Cities News Talk. Then on Sunday, the 11th, I'm going to be on At Issue with Tom Hauser, 10 a.m. on KSTP. And I also want to wish a very happy birthday week, both to my daughter, Sarah, and my father-in-law, Len. So.
Oh, it's Len. I thought maybe this was a typo. I was like, is it supposed to be Jen Burley? But this is
No.
not her birthday week.
No, she's at the end of the month.
Len. It is
Len.
Len. It is
Leonard.
Len. Nice. All right. Happy birthday, Len. And of course, Lady Sarah.
Yeah.
I got nothing to plug.
How was the moth?
Oh, it was amazing.
Sold out,
It was,
of
it was and a lot of fun. It was great. Great show. What are you? The
Patreon.
Oh yeah, we have no new patrons, but
After this
remember,
interview,
we deserve
After
that.
this interview, we will.
That's true. After this interview, this is your last. Oh, I ran into an important public official who has previously said to me,
I'm a dick.
Yeah, I'm a dick and sorry, not sorry. And I actually kind of like that energy. I thought that was kind of big dick energy.
That is. That is. It is.
But
And
I said to
highly
this,
not
I said to
Minnesota.
this person now, I said to this person now, we're off hiatus, so you can stop. They were asking for a one-time donation option, so I will look into that.
Oh, okay. All right. That's fair.
But-
That's
Well,
fair.
if they can make the donation and then they can unsubscribe.
Unsubscribe, yeah. But
sure.
we
Out.
prefer
But
that
ouch,
you just
we'll feel
subscribe
that.
and forget
Or
about it.
write a check, make a check to cash, and
Send it to Brian.
find it a good
Brian
home.
in Lakeville.
But as always, thank you to our patrons. We really appreciate it. And go to patreon.com/wrongaboutEverything podcast if you'd like to support the show. We're working to get you good content. And as you can see, like Amy got us a get.
Well,
We're better at this than we used to be.
Nice. That was nice.
I mean, we used to have people on for interviews every once in a while, and we just couldn't stop talking.
Yeah.
We're getting better at it.
We're getting better.
Yep.
Okay, so this week you can find me in a few places. I did. you can check me out
Not our
in-
office, everybody.
Okay, I was at a conference. I was working all week, but I also managed to slip in some interviews. You can catch me, and I'll be posting these. Did an interview with the Boston Globe, the Guardian in the UK, also on WCCO TV locally with the Washington Examiner. I was on BBC Radio last night with Reuters. I just finished an interview with CNN. That should be popping up soon. I even did Capital B News in Atlanta. Fantastic. And I will be on tomorrow afternoon at 1:30 Central on Newsmax.
Okay, so just listeners, remember, the next time Amy Koch complains about anything Democrats do, remind her that that Democrats are the reason she gets this much media play.
No, it's because of my cute smile.
It's because of literally Tim Walz. Like you're like
Because as soon as Trump goes into the news, I'm getting calls. Yeah, it's the presidential race. But and
I'll
of
do
course,
it. I'll do it. Call me.
Okay. I'll do it.
Nobody ever calls me.
They do too. All right. And also, of course, you can check out Brian and I on the Bob Sansevier BS podcast every Tuesday. Okay. With that, who wants to start with Spanks and thanks?
I can start us. So my it's a spathank again. So yesterday, when the announcement was made, it seems that there were talking points sent out, and I think it was talking points sent out because, like David Hahn in an interview mentioned,
Han. His wife is Ann, and it's like Ann Han.
Han, whatever.
Okay.
It's like I care as much about correctly pronouncing his name as I do about his opinions on tampons, which is what
just stay away.
like yesterday I saw this, like it was trending. It said tampon Tim. I'm like, what is that? And so and today Hillary Clinton tweeted the photo that people were using as supposedly an insult for Tim because the legislature passed and he signed a bill that provides free tampons for students in schools. And when I saw the hashtag, I was like, what is that? And I went on, I'm like, And I literally, like, I was talking to friends. I'm like, so explain to me what this is, because it seems like what we're talking about is a bill that provided tampons for kids, and they're like, yeah, that's what it is. I'm like, can Republicans be the caricature anymore that Tim Walz said is like, it looks like they're running to be the president of the He-Man women hating club, which is a very deep cut. That's a reference to the Little Rascals. That's not even a dad joke. That's like a
It was also a song by
that's a great
the band
granddad.
Extreme.
The
He-Man woman.
well, that must have been that's a reference to the Little Rascals too.
Woman hater.
Yeah, but anyway,
Wow. Never heard of it ever before.
do you watch Little Rascals when you were a kid? You never watched Little Rascals?
To listen to Extreme when
reruns?
you were in college.
Yeah. Well,
They're good.
No.
They're
guess.
they're actually
Anyway.
coming to town.
Anyway,
It's
Weird
just like
hit.
like what a like because hey Republicans, guess who menstruates? 51% of the voters that you want to convince. Just saying, maybe don't act like you're in junior high school and all icked out. Ooh, icky. Like Tim Walz likes tampons. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? That's so damn stupid. But keep up the stupid. It helps us just keep alienating women. And my thank. So there was an article that I was in yesterday. I saved it for my thank. That Sahan Journal reporter Becky Dernbach did a little profile about Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, who is. As you can imagine, there's a lot of eyes on her now, and there's a lot of it's like sort of the second wave of stories about Tim Walz is like, well, who's going to be Minnesota governor? Well, my best friend, my bestie, Peggy Flanagan, and Michael Madre, I'd love the piece. I think people will look at it and you can see like she's an incredibly a highly qualified, highly experienced. She's worked in public service since from a young age. Was head of the Children's Defense Fund. She is someone like you were saying that Tim Pawlenty had read every word. Like that is Peggy in the administration. Peggy is the person who is gets budget, gets policy, is a policy nerd, a policy geek, so I just incredibly excited for her yesterday. Because you imagine it's like people have been asking me what is this like? And Minnesota was like, but it's weird at so many different levels.
Yeah, there's so many levels of
including you can imagine my goddaughter, right? There's a lot of change, right? Yep. This is so it's just a lot for all of us to think about, and so I can't wait to Lieutenant Governor is a position that I think a lot of people know about, but not everyone, and so a lot more people are going to get to know Peggy Flanagan, and I'm very happy about that. And among other things, you will see is she has the most badass collection of earrings, which Wong Cat, not the National Blog, they pointed that out, and I was like, finally, someone has noticed that she has a badass collection of earrings. But more importantly, she's an extremely highly qualified and ready to step into the job, which is literally why someone is Lieutenant Governor. So go Peggy, we'll be seeing you soon.
She loves Chicago.
Who wants
fans.
pie?
Who wants pie?
That's right. She used. That's
pie?
right. She used to be we used to have her on a button bar. We had the clip of her saying, "Who wants pie?"
Our Thanksgiving episode.
Yeah. Whenever anyone said anything uncomfortable, we'd say, "Who wants pie? Who wants pie?" Yeah.
Good.
Okay. So my spank, which is also a little bit of a spank, but mostly a pretty hard spank, is to the Hennepin County commissioners who thought it was I don't know a good idea to attempt to vote for themselves a 49% raise. Now, I'm proud of everybody for standing up and kind of going, what the ever-loving F are you talking about? But this ultimately has now been abandoned and is not going to happen. But there were 4 people that were willing to vote to advance the plan to increase Hennepin County commissioners' salaries. Now, here's the thing. You can make an argument that elected officials don't make enough. You can make that argument. I won't. And that makes it so we can't retain and get good people to run for office. But the salary was going to go up to $182,000 a year, when the average, Hennepin County salary is about $48,000. So that is ridiculous. It was
what is the current salary?
122. So that's a good salary.
Because that's the thing is people are often surprised when people leave the legislature to run for county boards because it seems like not as important, but it actually pays way better. The county
And
commissioners.
sometimes only like 60 or 50 or 60,000, but that's more than the
But
legislature.
I think if you look across the board, like in counties, though, like it's interesting because people don't pay attention to county. So county boards they
why?
they give
Because
themselves
local news is
raises
gone.
and no one and like
local news is gone that used to cover all those things. So
sure.
it's a shame. Yeah.
So anyway, they're retreating from that. But so my spank was going to be to even coming up with it. My thank part of that thank is going to be to new Commissioner Heather Edelson, who voted no. Jeffrey Lundy was going to vote no. He was not present. And then who's the other guy?
We should have Heather Edelson on the show.
Yeah.
She is damn funny.
Yeah, she is.
I apologize for forgetting
She's
the
got
other
great
person.
hair.
But anyway, Anderson voted no. So anyway, so that's a thank. And then my other spank is or thank I guess it's going to be is to the people of Missouri. Squad member Cori Bush was taken out in her Democrat primary by a pro-Israel Democrat. And why I think this is good is, when this all settles down, the Trump stuff, whether he's here for 4 more years or not, we need to get back to normalcy. And the Republicans need to police the Republicans, and the Democrats need to police the Democrats, because the electorate as a whole doesn't seem to be able to, hold these people accountable. So I'm thanking the people of Missouri for holding Cori Bush accountable, and hopefully it is one more step towards normalcy.
It's so interesting that like AIPAC spent a lot of money, but none of their ads were about Israel.
Well, next up is thank. First of all, I'm going to spank the Islamic State because they took down. They took. One thing that maybe could stop Taylor Swift's rise to Queen of the World. She had 3 concerts scheduled in Vienna, August 8th through the 10th, and the team that's in charge of her concert announced that they would not be holding those because the stadium where they were going to be held in Vienna received credible Islamic State threat to those concerts, and so they had to cancel them for everyone's safety, which was the right thing to do. But I don't know. I just do not think the Islamic State wants to get between Swifties and Taylor. It's inadvisable, and they may have started a war they cannot finish there. And then I guess it's a spathank. I want to say a big thank you to the women's U.S. soccer team who was able to defeat Germany again yesterday and move on to the gold medal round of the Olympics. It's really exciting to have ladies when you've got the Golden Girls that are doing the women's gymnastics getting the gold, and now we've got the U.S. soccer team women going for the gold. The ladies are really showing up in these games, and it's so exciting to see. But you're spanked a little because I have tickets on Friday to the bronze medal round, and I was really hoping it would be Team USA, but it's not. We were hoping to be a cheer on, but we will go and boo Germany and or whatever, and show our USA colors there too, and lend support to the ladies. But so it's really it's like a thanks. It's a thank. And with that, I am former Republican Senate Majority Leader and again, just even more fangirl of Governor Tim Pawlenty, Amy Koch.
I am GOP strategist and ready for my 2028 Tim Pawlenty hockey jersey. Brian McDaniel.
I am Democratic strategist, and Democrats, don't worry, we'll start bringing more Democrats on this show. they're getting a little crazy over there. Howie Morillo.
And we are
Wrong about everything.
Take us away, Gabe.
Thank you, T-Paw.